So I remember back in middle of August, it was 1979. I was 14 years old, and my two older sisters took me to my first ever concert. It was James Taylor, Merriweather Post Pavilion. We had lawn seats, a picnic blanket. It was also, my sister, my older sister Nancy, passed me a joint, and it was the first time I also ever got stoned. And I knew at that moment that I was hooked. Not on weed, but on music and the power of music. Over the next few years, as my music taste evolved into, metal, I was listening to like Judas Priest and Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath. I also recognized something about fandom, because I would go to these concerts and buy the t-shirt, so that I could be a real fan of these artists. But more importantly, that concert t-shirt let me express my fandom, express something about who I was as a person. So Monday morning when I went to school as a teenager, wearing one of these shirts and go down the hall, everyone in the audience knew something about, or everyone in the audience, everyone in the school knew something about me, who I was. I used that artist and my fandom to express something about who I was. Within a few years, in my early 20s, I then entered the music business. I started as an artist manager. And I was always really curious about understanding that fandom, that relationship between the artist and the person that loves their music. That really fascinated me. It was more challenging back then. That was the late 80s. And we didn't have the technology that we do today. If we wanted to communicate with the fans of an artist, what we had to do was, and it sounds crazy now thinking back, but we would have to make postcards. So we'd get a sheet of cardboard, or sheets of them. We had an Apple IIc computer, and we'd put the tour dates on it and as much information as we could squeeze into a little postcard, go to a printer, have them print them all out, cut them into 4. Then I'd have stacks of thousands of postcards with tour dates that I had to mail to people. But first I had to go to the post office and get a book of stamps. And it was once a month I'd be at my dining room table. It was the worst experience ever, because I would have to literally lick like 1,000 stamps and put them on a postcard, until one day a friend of mine said, "Why don't you just use a sponge?" I was like, "Oh, okay." This job got so much easier. The new technology of a wet sponge instead of licking 1,000 stamps. But I was young and I was stupid. But that was this kind of like, okay, we could kind of communicate with an audience, but there was nothing like today. And at that period, the music industry was different when it came to this connection with fans. The music industry, you'd have videos on MTV or play songs on the radio, but nobody knew who was listening to them. You'd sell CDs in stores, but you had no idea who bought them. People would buy tickets for gigs, and you had no idea who walked in the door. And worse than that, and nobody cared. Nobody cared who bought the CDs, who listened to the songs on the radio, or who went to the gigs. It was just how much money did we make. And then the world changed. The World Wide Web comes, and finally we can get a direct connection with our audience for the first time ever. But it never really happened. There were still intermediaries, people mediating the relationship between the creators and their fans. So you could say, oh, they're online, iTunes owned the customer. iTunes knew who bought the downloads, the artists, the labels, the management companies, the publishers, they had no idea. And that's carried through to today's world with Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer. You have no idea who is listening to your music. And then you go, okay, well, what about social media? You have no idea who's on the other side. You do not have a relationship with the person that's following you on social media. As a matter of fact, they mediate that relationship to such an extent that if you do a post, they only show it to a small percentage of the audience. Most people have no idea you're trying to communicate with them because they control that relationship. And I think there's a lot of people here already trying to solve that problem, that relationship problem. So I didn't really want to get into that space. What really interested me was this notion that the mind share of music didn't match the wallet share. For as important as music is to people, as ubiquitous as music is, that everybody listens to music. Even if you don't want to listen to music, you go into a restaurant or a store, music is playing. It is everywhere. But it doesn't match the spend on music. I mean, think about other passions. Like, I don't know, think about how much people spend on yoga. Sorry, that sounded like I'm against yoga. Yoga. No, but think if you like yoga, you pay for the yoga classes, you get the yoga mat, you have your stretchy pants, and you spend a lot. Maybe you go on a yoga retreat. Like, you spend maybe thousands of dollars a year on yoga. Does anyone ski? Like, I took up skiing a few years ago. Like, I'm kind of old to learn to ski, but right after the pandemic, I learned to ski for the first time. Holy fuck, is that expensive? Like, you don't have to be passionate about skiing. You don't even have to like skiing. You could hate skiing. And if you go on a ski holiday, you're going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. From the ski rentals and the boots and the helmet and you have to get the pass to go on the mountain to get on you want to get to the top of the mountain? Well, you need a lift ticket. And you have to rent a lodge and you have to fly there, like thousands. And music, think about it. Let's say you're a big fan of music. $10 a month on a Spotify subscription, $120 a year. Okay, they bumped the prices up. $132 a year. Maybe buy a couple pieces of vinyl, go to a few concerts. Like, we're already struggling to get somebody to $500. And that's somebody that cares. To get somebody to $1,000, $2,000, nearly unheard of. Like, there isn't an opportunity to get people to that level. So I was thinking, maybe the way to do that, the route to that, is to build that relationship through investing in music. And again, it's not really a new idea. When I think about traditional investing, you could actually do quite a parallel to that. If you're an artist, you might not use this language. As a matter of fact, you definitely don't use this language, but you still have your kind of friends and family round to get you started. Maybe you get your next angel investor, and maybe that's your manager that comes on board and believes in you. And then you get a seed round and a Series A, maybe that's equivalent to getting signed to a major label. All the way up to a full exit when you sell it to Hypnosis, when you're much later in your career. And there is this parallel between funding music and fandom and how it works in the financial world. Except in music, it's fairly unstructured. There isn't this clear path about how you can do it. Maybe the only one that did it early on, because he did everything a bit early, was David Bowie. For somebody, I'm just looking at the age. Most of you are way too young. But you laughed, it means you're not. In 1997, David Bowie did what he called his Bowie bonds with Prudential. David Pullman was representing him, and they pulled off the Bowie bonds. And it was maybe the first time that financial institutions recognized that music is not just sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And I said not just. It's still sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but it's also money. And so I think they were quite shocked when he wanted to securitize his entire back catalog, and they're like, yeah, whatever. And he pulls out statements, royalty statements, and saying, see this song, Ziggy Stardust? Look how much money it makes. Still, to this day, it makes more money than ever before. And so they put together this bond. It might not have exactly worked that well, but it was a hint that what if we structured investment in music the way we structure other financial products? Because what I'm looking to do, and I said this to somebody last week, is I'm not really big into disruption. And I know when you're at these kind of events, everyone's talking about building the next disruptive technology, the next disruptive business model. But I'm not so much into disruption. I mean, disruption doesn't necessarily grow a business. It just eliminates one partner and replaces it with another. You just cannibalize something. What I like is enabling technologies that grow a business. And investing in music as an asset class means that Spotify, Apple Music, they stay in place. Major labels, major publishers, independents, the DIY, artists, they stay in place. They're not getting disrupted. TikTok, YouTube, they're all in place. All the social media, all of the Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, if you're still going on that, I find it quite toxic as X. But if you're using that, all of that stays in place. And we create new value on top, a blue ocean, creating demand where none existed previously. And now we build connections with people investing in their favorite artists. And it benefits everybody in the ecosystem. So the rights holders, the copyright holders make money, the artists and songwriters make money, the fans make money. Everybody in an ecosystem wins, but there's more money flooding into that ecosystem to grow it bigger, and it's not, can we sell more t-shirts? Not that there's anything wrong with selling more t-shirts. And so if we look at this, is it that investors become a way of demonstrating something about who they are as people? Like, I don't know, in New York, there's this very, well, it's not the nicest phrase, but there's like these, what we call crypto bros. And the crypto bros, because they're always fucking bros. They're guys. And they're the ones like, yo, fucking, hey, I just got some Bitcoin and the fucking price is going up. And like, are they really buying Bitcoin? Or are they buying it like I used to buy a t-shirt to express something about themselves so that they can go to their friends to demonstrate just how cool they are that they bought Bitcoin, that they understand the blockchain and everyone else is like, huh, what is it? So are they going to use music as an investment to say something about who they are as a person? That the songs you invested in, were they risky? Were they safe? Were they cool? Is investing in music the new t-shirt that people will be wearing as a badge of honor of, this is what I invested in? So, thank you very much for your time.